So, James, we are here. We now live in a post-disclosure world. Are you ready?
No.
Me neither. Hello and welcome to a very special episode of Paranormality. This is the first post-disclosure episode. I'm going to call this post-disclosure because I personally believe this is the start of something monumental within the UFO community. Hello, James. How are you?
Pumped. I am ready.
So, are you glad that we started doing a UFO podcast again?
Yeah, like this stuff never made me excited, but the more we go into it, it's mind-blogging, and I can't wait.
Yeah.
I cannot wait. Give it to me.
This is not an episode I thought I'd be recording, let's put it that way. I thought that we would be doing, this thing happened back in the 70s. Oh, remember the Phoenix Lights? I thought we'd be just doing more sort of retro cases, and then maybe every now and again, there'd be a pretty cool video on Reddit that I could show you and we'd collectively lose our minds. I have to say, this news does come with a slight sting to the tail, because it does mean that I am no longer the top post of all time on our UFOs. I have lost that treasured prize, and I'll be honest, I'm happy to pass the mantle over to David Grusch. You are the king of our UFOs. I know, it's tough. It's all I had going for me, I'll be honest.
Yeah.
It's all I had.
The R in RIP stands for Reddit today.
It does indeed.
It does.
So,
indeed.
James, you know what I've got to do, don't you?
The best bit.
The spiel.
The spiel.
So, before we jump into possibly the most important news to have ever happened within the UAP community, if you enjoy this show, please share this with anybody that you possibly can. We're living in a world where it's no longer stigmatized to enjoy talking about UFOs.
Very
and
much
actually
so.
It's becoming a bit more mainstream. So if you have somebody that maybe might be on the fence with all this stuff, or maybe they haven't really looked into it that much, give it a share, show it to them and say, hey, listen to these wicked dudes. They talk about UFOs and stuff, and that's cool now. It's really
Very
hit.
cool.
And they've got a TikTok, Paranormality Podcast, and they've got Facebook. They're down with the kids. They've got a Facebook. We have a Facebook?
We're
we do.
super young.
Paranormality. We're super cool. Paranormality Podcast on Facebook. You can find us on Twitter. We are at Podnormality. You can find us on YouTube, and the best way to find that is to go to our link tree, which is linktr.ee/Paranormality Podcast. We've got our YouTube on there. We've got all our social medias. We've got merch that I keep forgetting that we have. You can find us on all your platforms that you possibly want, but most importantly, you can share with all your friends, and you can all talk about UFOs and be really cool and hip like me and James.
Oh, it was so cool. Like, my cool levels tripled since starting this. Like,
it's over 9,000. That's our cool levels.
Like, my mum started to speak to me again. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, that's where we are. This is very much becoming a bit more of a mainstream topic of discussion now, and I can't wait anymore. Oh my God, James, what the hell has happened this week?
It's turned from myth to reality is what's happened in the last week. It's for me, it's gone from the scale has lifted to more realism than just stories that are told by, people like Billy Bobs and stuff.
Yes.
There's always that few that stick out of the good people, but this one is huge. It's
massive. If you're not aware of what's happened, we're going to go through sort of the chain of events as of our recording today, which is Wednesday the 7th. I'm sure between now and Sunday, when this episode comes out, that there will be more stuff that we should have talked about. But this is a very much an evolving situation. Day by day, I've been having to change the podcast script. I've been having to add a few more bits in. I've been having to change a few things. It's been incredible. So if you live under a rock and you're not aware what happened, we have had a whistleblower who is the very first US intelligence. I don't even know how to describe it. He's a US intelligence officer, or is he? I don't know, but he's part of the US government, and he is alleging that during his time on the UAP task force, he spoke to various people, saw documents, images, and proof and evidence of UAP and UFO craft retrieval programs with, and I'm going to repeat the exact words, craft, occupants, and technology that is not of human origin. That's mad. He's confirming that the US government have intact, partial, and landed UFO crafts that they are subjecting to back engineering. And not only that, he has said that this is not just the US government doing it, that this is a global scenario, and it's sort of like an arms race to try and unlock the technology before anyone else can. So he has stated quite clearly, adversaries to the United States also have this technology, and this is mad.
It's like a second Cold War, isn't it? All underground, like, you know, the space race and all that. Yeah, it's
when I first sort of said, "Oh my God, James, whoa," what was your sort of like initial gut reaction to this?
To hide, if I'm honest.
My gut reaction was, "Oh, we've got another Bob Lazar." That was my first reaction.
Yes. Oh, it's actually his son. No.
Yeah.
It's the more I looked into it, the more stuff you sent me, and the more I read into it, the more I always say the word credence this guy got, and I'm like, God, this guy is super high up. Like, he's not, you know, like we said, the quality of the witness is important, and he is very high up in the quality side. You know, he's
not just that, he's been backed by lots of other quality witnesses.
Yes, so the quality of his witness is backed by another quality witness, which is just If this was court, he'd be winning. Let's put it that way. And
100%,
yeah.
And this isn't an eyewitness account. I want to get this out there. He's not saying, I've seen this. What he's saying is, I've gone to Congress and I have stated under oath everything I'm about to tell you. I have thousands of documented proofs. I have seen images. I have had conversations with various individuals that work in programs I'm not aware of, and I have top-level security within the US government, and I am a high-level intelligence officer, and I've never heard of these programs before. And I'm telling you right now that we have crash retrieval programs, and he has stated that under oath. And the reason this has come forward is because he has made a complaint, basically. But this isn't really where the story starts, because if we go back a week, literally 7 days prior to this coming out, there was a Politico article that was titled, "If the government has UFO crash materials, it's time to reveal them." I'm not going to do a long descriptor of this entire article. We don't have time for that. But the main sort of 7 points are that in order to live in a democracy, we need full transparency. Any discovery that is found, we own that as a civilization, not just America, but the human race owns that. We can handle it. We're not babies. We know that we're probably not alone, and we are able to comprehend the fact that there might be life out there. We don't control these things, so we need to know who does. It's only really a matter of time before full disclosure happens anyway, so you may as well tell us before you're forced to tell us. Secrecy stifles science, and is there an imminent threat to what is being seen? That came out a week ago, and I thought, oh, that's a good article, but
interesting article, yeah.
Is disclosure only a matter of time away? Because we've sort of discussed that for 50, 60, 70, 80 years, and I just thought, it's a good read, but it probably isn't going to go anywhere. I want to ask you a question. Prior to what's been happening this week, if I was to say to you, what do you think UFO disclosure would look like? What would you think would happen? Because I've got a very clear thing of what I thought UFO disclosure would look like, but what did you think it may look like if it ever happened? As someone who's sort of like new to this scene.
I think, like, considering the evidence of what governments kind of do anyway, it would be on page 14 in a newspaper in the back of a shelf. They would release it, not bells and whistles or lights. It would be, ironically, still quite secretive. It wouldn't just be for everyone to see. They'd be like, oh, we did release it, but no one saw it. Like, I feel like it'd be like that. They would send out the information, but no one would see it, if that makes sense.
That's pretty much what I thought would happen as well, that they would say, oh, we've got these things, we don't know what they are, this is a project that we've got going on, we'll have a look into it. And then maybe 3 or 4 years later, they might, host, NASA might host like a UAP conference and say, oh, we get 800, things sent into us a month. We can explain 95% of them, but the 5% that are left, we have literally no idea what they are. And, oh, by the way, there's spheres that we're seeing all over the globe, and we don't know what they are. But they don't show any sort of means of transportation that we're not aware of. But they're just floating metallic orbs that we see literally all over the world. And we get 40 or 50 of these sightings every month that we've got no idea what they are. But don't worry. And then maybe a few whistleblowers might come out. And then it would get mostly ignored by the mainstream media. And James, wouldn't you know it, that's literally what's happened here. Only last week, and I had a full podcast episode scripted for the NASA UAP conference. I'm not kidding. I've got a full script for that, of all of their points that they went through. And I'm thinking to myself, this is disclosure as I'm writing it. And as I basically finish the script this weekend, ready to send it to you and roll it out, the whistleblower came. This is disclosure. I don't care what anyone says. It's happening right now. We have a US intelligence officer telling us there are alien craft that the US government have. And I know Bob Lazar said it 30 years ago, but now someone else is saying it. And they're not just some random dude who likes guns and hookers that lives in Texas and makes rocket cars in his garage. This is a very high-level chief who was literally in the UAP task force, who was testified under oath to Congress. You don't get much bigger than that, do you?
I was about to say that you can't. There's, like Bob Lazar's a big name, but there's so much stuff you can, discredit him for.
Baggage, yeah.
But this guy I don't know if anybody knows much about this guy, but if he holds himself as he does during the interviews, and like you said, the quality of the witness before him, it must be, why could you dispute that? Why would he? It just seems like he just wants the information out there. Do you know?
One of the reasons that I think that this is so huge is that we live in a world now where this isn't ridiculed. Did you know that Barack Obama is going to be doing a Netflix show on the abduction of Betty and Barney Hill? That's where we're at. A former president.
That's cool as hell.
A former president of the United States is doing a UFO abduction series with Netflix.
It's either very cool or very poor.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm so sold on that. That's so, he's broke as hell, man. Broke Obama.
But that's where we're at.
It's not completely satire.
No. We now are at a point where mainstream media are catching up. Whistleblowers are coming out. Former presidents are doing literal Netflix TV shows about one of the most famous abduction cases ever. And still, people are saying that this isn't real. It's not happening. Well, they can explain 95% of the UAP evidence that's shown to them. What about the 5%? That's a big number. 40 a month is a huge number. That's more than one a day.
I was just say 5% in the grand. That could be huge. And
this is only military stuff, by the way. This isn't random dudes filming stuff. This is military observed sightings given to Arrow, and they're saying, well, we can explain 95% of them. We can't explain 5% of them. Maybe, I think they said 2 to 5%. So that's anywhere from sort of 15 to 40 potential UAPs every month they cannot explain. And people say, well, that's not a big number. It's almost one every other day, or it's more than one a day.
So to me, one's enough. One that one of the highest scientific organizations in the world can't explain. They're the forefront of thinking, NASA, the biggest brains and all this, and they can't explain 40 a month,
So that's
you would notice a 5% drop in your pay. Do you know what I mean?
You would, yeah.
Like, you would notice that. So if they can't explain, it's people trying to blow it off again, man.
So that's where we're at. I fully believe that we are in the midst of full disclosure of UAPs. Like, there's no other way to go about it. And I think that one of the pushes that Grusch is saying is that there needs to be a historical disclosure as well. We need to see how far this goes back, because as far as he's concerned, this goes back 60, 70, 80 years. But I want to get into who is David Charles Grusch. So it's groundbreaking. Like, there's no other way to explain this. This is massive. He's a former intelligence official turned whistleblower. David Charles Grusch is the name. For anyone out there, he is a hero in my eyes. He's provided extensive classified information to Congress and the Intelligence Community Inspector General about covert programs involving the retrieval of non-human craft. Grusch alleges that the information has been unlawfully withheld from Congress, and he's filed a complaint claiming illegal retaliations for his discourses. That's mad to think that this has only come about because he fully believes that because he's made this information sort of available to Congress, that he is now facing potential security risks. And one of the reasons that, for me, this is so interesting and so important is that there is a real push for this guy to be made sure he's safe. People sort of in the know, Ross Coulthard, who's sort of done the interview, has said that they had to get this out fast for security reasons. This guy is coming forward. His face is everywhere. His name is everywhere. He's basically target number one. If you think about it, he's coming forward saying the government are hiding potentially free energy and alien crafts and knowledge of extraterrestrial life. He's enemy number one as far as he's concerned. So I think as much as he's doing this for everybody else, I think he's doing it a little bit selfishly for himself as well, because he needs to show the world who he is before he accidentally shoots himself in the head 3 times.
Exactly like Bob, right? You know, Bob was very much that sort of like, I need to get my name out there so people know who I am. Yeah. So before he ends up committing suicide in jail, isn't it?
Exactly. Grusch himself isn't a dude that likes hookers and guns and makes rocket cars in his garage. Grusch is a decorated combat officer and veteran of the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency, the NGA, the National Reconnaissance Office, the NRO, and served as the Reconnaissance Office's representative for the UAP Task Force. So this isn't just Billy Bob in his garden who's seen some lights in the sky. He is someone who worked on the UAP Task Force, who worked for the Reconnaissance Office and worked for various intelligence agencies. And Grusch's claim is that the government, along with its allies and defence contractors, have been retrieving intact and partially intact non-human craft for decades. So that's who this guy is. What are your thoughts on that, James, when we're talking about the validity of witnesses?
Yeah, you can't, like, it's that, from what I know, it's the highest of validity of witnesses that have come forward. You know, no offense to, you know, the Nimitz guys or anything like this, but...
By the way, people are trying to discredit him. People are trying to discredit Grusch because he currently works in real estate, and they're saying, well, why does someone in real estate, how can someone who sells houses know all this stuff? Well, it's because he left the government because he felt that he was going nowhere and that there were illegal retaliations for his discourses. So that's why he works in real estate, you absolute morons.
He's also in 3 parts of the government that solely deal with, like, let's say, recon and, you know, geospatial. So I'm guessing that's around the planet. And he fought in Afghanistan. In Afghanistan as well. He's a combat veteran. He knows his stuff. He knows how governments work. He knows how the military works. And a lot of these guys are sort of brainwashed to obey the government, you know, like, you know, for us, it's obviously like fight for the king and all this, but for them, it's, you know, love your country. You know, he's obviously probably proud of, you know, what the companies are, but to a point, he had a level, he had a breaking point, and he just went, that's it. Like, the world needs to know, I need to get this off my back. Like, there's too much secrecy and, you know, not enough disclosure, I guess, going on. But my assumption is it's just a guy who knows stuff. Try to let the government know that I know this, you know, because we don't know how deep the levels go secrecy. You know, we don't know you know, we don't know how much he knows or the guy above him knows. It's just so many levels of dirty, dirty secrets.
It's like a Russian doll in terms of the levels that this goes. So he's the big first doll, and you open him up, and then there's a secret agency that he talks to. Then that secret agency has people within it, and you open that up, and guess what? They work for Lockheed Martin or Skunk Works. So you open that up, and guess what? They're subcontracted out by somebody else. And you open that up, and they work for a government agency that no one's ever heard of, and they work on a project that no one even knows about. And you open that up, and then, these guys, they're subcontractors from a private equity firm, but they've got links to this firm, and you just keep diving down into the smaller and smaller doll until you get to a point where nobody even knows where this funding comes from, where this craft came from, what the hell this technology even is. And it's a group of 10 scientists working in a bunker in the middle of the desert somewhere, trying to figure out what this metallic sphere is.
Yeah.
It goes levels down. And for me, Grusch has tried his best to put this forward.
I agree.
Nothing has happened.
It was never gonna. Like, everything, and they control the media, don't they?
He is as valid as a witness as you can possibly get.
Yeah.
And this is funny. The reason this has all come forward isn't because, like him or love him, Bob Lazar, obviously, part of him coming forward, I think he wanted to make a bit of a name for himself. And we see that all the time. Jeremy Corbell a few weeks ago, I've seen a craft, it's a big UFO that's floating in the sky. I want to be the name. And I don't care what people say, he said it was a craft multiple times on his podcast. People saying, well, he's only asking questions. Corbell said it was a craft multiple times.
Yeah, you didn't go, is it a craft? There's no inflection.
This guy isn't doing that. The reason this has come forward is that Grusch made a complaint. And his complaint, and again, we're talking about validity of witnesses, represented by the original Inspector General of the intelligence community. Again, pretty cool guy in terms of validifying your statement and making sure that this isn't just some random dude. He alleges that UAP-related classified information has been illegally concealed from Congress. His claim is that non-human craft possess exotic origins based on, this is a bit wordy, vehicle morphologies, material science testing, unique atomic arrangements, and radiological signatures. He reports that recovery operations are ongoing, and he knows specific individuals, current and former, who are still involved in these programs. So I just want to go over what that bit means. So the vehicle morphologies and the material science testing is something that I think the reason that this tech has never been expanded on is because we physically don't have the means to create the material made. It would be like going back to the 1500s and asking them to build a Eurofighter. Like, they've got the thing in front of them. They can see that there's wires, but they don't know what copper is. They do, but they don't know how to make copper rolls. They don't know what titanium is. They don't know how to make rubber or oil. So you can only then get to a point of working on these things when your material science matches these things.
Yes.
And as Sean Cahill said a few months ago, these things could be 1,000 years ahead of us. So it's very much, we don't know what this stuff is because we physically don't understand how these materials are made. That's why they're called exotic. How does that make you feel that we could have this stuff, couldn't even work it if we wanted to?
I don't know, if this feels, it's tiny. I feel tiny knowing that, you know, I know we're not the forefront, you know, as scientific as we could be, but if with that behind, you know, makes you feel tiny, a bit scared, a bit like what's, you know, because this very closely proves what we're talking about for the last 10 episodes, 11 episodes, and they could be anywhere. And if we don't even know how to defend, to fight anything, it's, you know, it's a boot with an ant, isn't it?
Yeah,
sort of feels like.
I was having this conversation with somebody that I work with, and the way that I see it is within 50 years, I believe, was it 50 years? When did the Wright brothers first fly their plane?
Yeah, I think it was like 1900 what? So if like 60 odd years, I think they were on the moon, weren't we?
Yeah, so the Wright brothers was 1903, and then the moon landing was 1969, was it?
Yeah, so 66 years.
So within 66 years, we went from flying 100 yards in the Wright brothers' little ramshackle wooden thing to landing people on the moon. What if that difference isn't that much? Imagine what 1,000 years would do. It beggars belief. We've got hypersonic missiles. We've got hypersonic missiles at the moment. We only invented flight 120 years ago. Times that by 10. Times that time difference that we have between this happening for the first time, that flight at Kitty Hawk, and hypersonic Mach 5 missiles. What if it's not that much? What if we're not that far evolved? You think of the smartest apes and chimps in the world can do a bit of sign language and can do basic maths. So can my 3-year-old. What if that's the difference? What if the smartest human beings in the world can do what these things toddlers can do? Like, it's not that far of a stretch. So, yeah, it does make you feel very small.
It's the less words I understand, the more scared I get.
Yes.
Like, I think that's the best way for me to describe it is, I don't even know what morphology is. I'm guessing it's the way the vehicle can change its like density or anything. Like, it's morphs.
They could be speaking in ancient Latin.
We just don't know, do we?
These things are weird, basically. But ironically, Grusch's disclosures seem to have been the establishment of Arrow. That's what a lot of the debrief article was about, is that actually Grusch coming forward with this sort of prompted Arrow, which is the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, to sort of like kick into action and be a thing. And the reason it's called All-Domain is because these aren't just seen in space. There is USOs, which is unidentified submerged objects.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of what's happening is objects under the ocean being seen and witnessed, and one of the 5 observables that Lou speaks about is being able to cross mediums of flight. Grusch has said, and this is something that, again, definitely makes me sort of shudder a bit, we are not talking about prosaic origins or identities. Prosaic is something from Earth, by the way. We're not talking about prosaic origins or identities. The material includes intact and partially intact vehicles. So he's talking about stuff that's not ours. Like, it doesn't get more obvious than that statement. This stuff isn't ours.
That sentence, we're not talking prosaic origins and identities, that's, like, it could be, we somehow found a craft from 3,000 years ago buried. This is not from Earth. It's like, I'm guessing materials they don't recognize.
I put a post up on Twitter, like a poll, asking people what they think this is most likely is. And the 2 answers were extraterrestrial and extra-dimensional, which is just, even in itself, we're not even talking about our universe anymore. We're talking about completely different dimensions of existence. That's where this could go. But Grusch himself has alleged that he's had months of retaliation and reprisals, like I said earlier, for his disclosures, and it's led to his decision to leave the government. And his hope is that by doing this and going public, that his complaint, which has been found credible, by the way, by the Intelligence Community Inspector General, he's hoping that triggers other whistleblowers to come forward, which pretty sure it will. I think there's talk of 3 other people coming forward within the next few weeks.
I think a lot of these sort of like environments where there's sort of conversations, rather, bad conversations happen, trying to keep it in the house. The second one person comes forward, it kind of opens that door for everyone else to come forward. Like the
spectator syndrome. You spoke about it last week.
Yeah. So second one person, you see one person doing it, you're like, right, that's acceptable for me to do now. And then it should.
David Grusch has come forward. I can as well. And I think that's why it's so brave of him to have done this. He's the one that's like, come on, guys, help me out, please. And it could be huge. Now, I want to go over again the validity of who we're talking about. Because when you talk about, because we've said this multiple times, we don't want videos of grainy lights in the sky. We don't want pictures in low-level light. And we don't want some random dude on a military base trying to remember something he saw 2 years ago on a phone call with someone. Like, we want real witnesses who can back their claims up, but not only that, can have other people confirm that they are legitimate people to talk to. So there have been other people that have come forward to back, they're not backing the claims, but they're backing the fact that Grusch is credible. These witnesses, they confirm the sensitive nature of this, which relates to non-human craft. So this isn't, like we keep saying, it's not Billy Bob. This is a legit dude. The first person to talk about is Carl Nell. He is a retired Army colonel and current aerospace executive who was the Army's liaison for the UAP task force. So he worked alongside Grusch, and he has characterized Grusch as beyond reproach. So this is, again, a very high up colonel in the Army who was serving as the Army's point of contact for the task force, who has said, yes, this guy is legit. Listen to what he's saying. Christopher Mellon, if you know about this topic, is a name that comes up a lot. He spent 20 years in US intelligence and served as the Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for Intelligence. Again, there's a lot of terms, there's a lot of abbreviated phrases. Yeah, generally for me, in the US government, the more abbreviations you have, the more letters you have, the sort of like higher up you are. So yeah, he's a very important person in terms of where he is in the US government, Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for Intelligence. So he is the intelligence chief of the US Army, basically.
Yep.
That's a pretty high up person.
Pretty high up.
He has said the following statement. A number of well-placed current and former officials have shared detailed information with me regarding this alleged program, including insights into the history, governing documents, and the location where a craft was allegedly abandoned and recovered. However, it is a delicate matter getting this potentially explosive information into the right hands for validation. I've boldened this next section. This is made harder by the fact, rightly or wrongly, a number of potential sources do not trust the leadership of the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office established by Congress. Lots of people who potentially can come forward with this information do not trust Arrow at all. They believe if they come forward to Congress, nothing will be done. Does that sound familiar, James?
Yes, a little bit, yeah.
Does that sound exactly like what's happened to Grusch?
Mm-hmm.
So Grusch has come forward to Congress, given them their evidence. They have formed Arrow. Nothing has happened.
Nothing's happened.
They don't trust them. The people who have this information to come forward, they can't just give it up. They can't just take sensitive military documents that are top secret classified, that they've signed waivers and NDAs to, and be like, hey guys, look at all this top secret sensitive information, and then all that information be given to all of their adversaries. They can't do that.
They were like, oh, my coffee spilt. They
can't do that. So let's put it into this smaller perspective. My company sells building materials to people through the internet, right? If I took all of our company's price lists and just rocked up to another builder's merchants down the road from me and said, oh, I think that it's in a matter of interest of the public that you have all of our prices, I'd lose my job, and I'd probably get sued, and I'd probably potentially never get a job in that industry ever again. Take that to its logical extreme. If you worked in the military and you went to a newspaper and said, here's lots of very top secret, highly classified, sensitive documents that are very, very much to do with national security, do you think that person's going to last a day? Or do you think they're probably going to be slapped up in prison and never see the light of day again?
Yeah, it gives me the weebies, man.
I'll tell you what, I'll ask you this, James. If you knew that you had direct proof and evidence of UFOs, you work in the military, and you've got this direct evidence of UFOs, and you could come forward with this information, but it meant that you would spend the rest of your life in prison and never see any of your family ever again, and spend the rest of your days locked in a cell, would you do it?
God, no.
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 Me neither.
Sorry.
Why would you?
I'm all about transparency and stuff, but no. Like,
it's someone else's cost. Someone else can do that. I'm not doing that. I'm not being the person that comes forward and spends the rest of my life in prison. And I know lots of people will listen to this and think, but what, you've got proof that aliens exist. I don't care. I love my family too much. Like,
Also, it means, but if I'm in a cell, sorry, it just like, you know, he's very brave for doing it. Like, there's no doubt about that and stuff.
But he can't come forward with the evidence. He can't, because he's given it to the government and nothing's been done. He can't just go to a newspaper and be like, hey, do you want lots of top secret sensitive information? Because he'll be put in prison for life.
GDPR will be on his ass. Like,
look at what happened to that kid a few months ago who shared a load of Ukraine documents on his Discord with his friends. He's going to spend 30 years in prison for that. I am not doing that, thank you. I want to see my kids grow up. I've got a 3-year-old and a 1.5-year-old. I don't want to spend the rest of my life in prison and then never see me again.
I'm a pretty selfish person, but I'm being selfish when that calls into the point. Like, 100%. I'm all for transparency, but from this and reading people's comments and stuff, this has so much validity more than I've seen in the however long we've been doing this now, like almost a year. I know it's not long, but...
And you don't need the documents. You don't need it there, because if you want the documents, go and submit a Freedom of Information Act to the US government and try and get it. He's given them the proof. He's given them the documents.
50% of the people are still going to call him a liar, a scoundrel, whatever other words. It's this. Unfortunately, when it comes to facts, people will mistake their opinions for such, and that's where it becomes difficult. Is I can say as much as I want, as I can give you all this information and my credibility, but there's still going to be 50% of people out there that are just going to call me a liar. And
guess what? The first thing Mick West said was, "Well, where's the proof?" The US government have the proof. He can't share the proof, because if he does, he will be arrested for treason. What part of that do you not understand? He can't just give up sensitive data. Like, it just... And also, if he copied... Say he went into, I don't know, Area 51, and he plugs a USB drive into the side of a computer, and he hacks the system, and he drags and drops a few files into a USB drive, do you think he's even getting off that base? Do you think that's ever going to happen? Do you not think that they have protocols in place to make sure that this stuff doesn't get leaked? No, Mick West, he can't just show you the proof, because what he did was he took the proof and the evidence and he took it to Congress, which is what he was supposed to do, and they took that information and they created Arrow, All Domain Resolution Office. They did that. They made Arrow, and then Arrow got the information and the proof and the documents and the witnesses and the statements that were given, and they went, cool, and then nothing was done. So if you want the proof, Mick West, go and find it. Like, find the proof. Like, ask the government. Go to your congressman and say, we need to know more information on this.
Yeah. What also, like, if you want to debunk something, put effort into it. Don't just go, you show me why I'm wrong. You show me why I'm wrong. No, you prove why you're right. Like, it shouldn't be that guy's job to prove you wrong. It should be your job to prove you're right.
And the thing is that Grusch at no point has said, I've seen this stuff, by the way. He's said, I have interviewed people as part of my job, and I have compiled months and months worth of data and information as part of the UAP task force where I was employed, and I have given that proof and evidence and information to the UAP task force, who have then taken it to Congress, and through me doing that, nothing has happened. And I have been hounded out of my job in the government to the point where I've had to resign my post, where I am a decorated veteran of combat, where I've worked my way up the system like I was supposed to, like a good boy, pledge allegiance every day, salute the flag, do your job, hand on heart. He's done all of that. He's got to the point where he's like, right, let's blow this thing wide open. Nothing. To the point where Chris Mellon is saying people just don't trust Arrow. They're not going to do this anymore. The only way this will now come forward is if we have whistleblowers, but they can't just hand over sensitive information. No, they have to come out and say...
Because they'll probably get killed.
Yeah, they have to come out and say, this is what's happened. Go and ask the government to show you. Because the only people that can make this happen and go away now is the US government. If they say, okay, let's look into it, and let's look into it properly.
Yeah.
Maddening. no, he's not just going to risk life in prison so that Mick West can believe him.
Yeah.
Idiot.
Oh, yeah. What's your email, Mick West? Let me just send you these files I have.
Yeah, what's your Outlook email address? Let me just log into Hotmail and I'll send you 2,000 pages of sensitive military documentation.
Yeah. To a non-official guy on Twitter. Like, it's not like it's not like someone
the guy who helped make Tony Hawk. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Go back to making Christ airs, Mick West. Like, stick to your job. It's like, why would he? It's just that's the side of the stuff that really annoys me. Is there's so many closed-minded people here that it's just
the first thing Mick West said was, "Well, prove it. Where's the proof? Where's the evidence? Where's the proof? Where's the evidence?" Well, he gave it all to the US government. And nothing happened.
I think the point of this is like he's trying to prove obviously what he's thinking, but he's also trying to prove how shady the government can be and how much they can cover up. So
we deserve to know this.
Yeah, this was probably meticulously thought and written and almost scripted from Grusch. Like, well, I can't. Did I say Grusch? Isn't it? Sorry, yeah.
Grusch,
I said Grusch is the guy from Cobra Kai, but like, it's just, I feel like the guy knows how to play the system, and he's played it so well on this part by saying, look, I'm not giving you evidence, I'm giving you facts and data, and this is what happened to me. Here's my credibility, kind of your opinion to make it on it now. But this is just to show you that a person in my power gets treated like this by the government.
Yeah.
Like, it just shows how diluted the media is for us and how we're manipulated in that way. Just, we probably see 5%, go back to that thing of really what's going on. And that's what really, really sickens me.
So there has been a Pentagon response. I don't know if you've seen the full response, James, but
I don't think so.
We have had a statement from the Pentagon. So it says, and remember, nobody within these projects trust anything Arrow says, all right? To date, Arrow has not discovered any verifiable information to substantiate claims that any programs regarding the possession of reversed engineering extraterrestrial materials have existed in the past or exist currently. Arrow is committed to following the data and its investigations wherever it may lead. Arrow, working with the Office of the General Counsel and the Air Force Office of Special Investigations, has established a safe and secure process for individuals to come forward with information to aid Arrow in its congressionally mandated historical review. Arrow's historical review and testimonies is ongoing and due to Congress by June 2024. Arrow welcomes the opportunity to speak with any other former or current government employees or contractors who believe they have information relevant to historical review. So one thing that I just want to point out here is they don't deny this. There's no denial of this happening. What they say, and it's very, very carefully written, Arrow has not discovered any verifiable information to substantiate claims. That's lawyer speak for we haven't researched this enough to say yes or no. So for me, looking at this, that is Arrow admitting that they have had information passed over to them, but that they haven't done the legwork to make sure that it's legit. It's a very, very carefully worded statement. Very carefully. All they say in this 2 paragraphs is, we can't confirm or deny these, and we can't verify the claims made. That's what it's saying. It's not saying absolutely no, there are not historic UFO crash retrieval programs. All they're saying is, we can't verify that yet. So they probably have that information, but they need to have it peer reviewed. They have to have it all examined. They have to speak to thousands of people. They have to go to bases. They have to go and see the physical objects. That's never going to happen. So they can't do anything because it's just this armless organization that aren't doing their jobs properly.
Oh no, they're doing their jobs properly.
Yeah, they are.
Sorry, they are exactly. Yeah. They're doing exactly what they were made to do. Like, we want them to do the job that we want them to do, but they are just hiding and, but their office must be just 90% shredders.
No, that's what that statement says, is that we just can't verify it. Who knows? They might be there, but we have to go through this long arbitrary process. So who knows? Who knows? That's what that statement says.
Yeah, totally agree.
Our last segment was sort of going to be like a reaction from both of us about what a post-disclosure world would look like, but I feel like we went through that at the start of the show.
Yeah,
so
I agree.
I just want to go over a few things in terms of like the media I don't want to be like, big media bad, but I just want to go over a few things that have been pointed out prior. So there is very much an emphasis at the moment on this, that more people need to come forward. More whistleblowers need to come forward, and they have to do it publicly, because doing it privately gets them nowhere. And part of the validity of this has to be if media organizations pick this up. So initially there was a statement that said, prior to the Keen Blumenthal article being offered to the debrief, which is where this broke, it was passed on by the New York Times, the Washington Post, The Hill, and Politico. And that's not entirely true. A statement has been made basically that the Washington Post didn't pass on the statements and the story, but they didn't have time to put it out in a relevant timeline. That's an interesting phrase, because listening to Coulthard speak on his show, it sort of sounded like they had to get this out as quick as possible to beat get ahead of the reaction to it. So they had to get their foot in first, so that no defensive structures could be made to be like, if you hear a story coming out, by the way, in the next few weeks about potential craft UFOs, blah, 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 it's this guy who did work in the task force, but he left it 2 years ago, and he's made a complaint against us, and that's why he's coming forward, because he's put a complaint in, and he's just it's just sour grapes. He's an old employee who's just trying to cause a fuss.
He's an estate agent now.
Yeah, it sounds like they had to sort of like jump the gun a bit to stop, as Grusch says, a very, very heavy media-based disinformation project that is centered around the government. He says that in an interview, that there is a very, very strong disinformation program that is currently taking place against the general public. Pretty much what you said earlier, James, right?
Yeah, we're getting good at this. It's I've never trusted that side of stuff anyway. Like I always feel like, I know we're being lied to and it's considered stupid, and just it makes me sad.
Well, I want to take you from sad to terrified again. I like doing this.
Oh, it's my two favorite emotions. Let's go.
So there's been a couple of interviews that have come out, and obviously I've shared them both with you. They're like little segments of the larger interview that's coming out this weekend. And lots of key information has come out. And the first one, I can't believe this isn't being picked up even more. David Grusch all but confirms that US military personnel have been either killed or injured by malevolent acts, and that this is basically a Cold War, secret Cold War between various governments. But I want to go back to that first part, that he has talked extensively about essentially US military personnel being killed in action, either in defense or in an offensive attack by potential UAP. So whether that's my thought of this, and it might be a bit out there, is that submarine crashed a few years ago, believe a Russian sub, off the coast of, I think it was Sweden. It just literally went missing and they couldn't find it. And it was a nuclear submarine. You might remember this.
Yeah.
Something that we've talked about quite extensively is that there is a sort of cause and effect between nuclear power and UAPs. So if my sort of thoughts on this is that there is something and it's probably underwater, could a nuclear sub have got too close to something under the water and it sunk, and then there was a big hushed up cover-up retrieval of this nuclear sub? It happened a few years ago.
Maybe the only thing that we have as humans that could cause them damage is a nuke. So that's the thing they react to.
It's funny that you mentioned that, because there is apparently, Lou Elizondo spoke to people in Italy, and then apparently in the 30s they shot something down during a skirmish. And there has been talk that a way to disable these things is through EMPs. So I think that there's potential sort of, if we really look into this, could nuclear powers be causing accidents? Here it is. Belgorod was the submarine. It was leaving the Severodovskin White Sea in the Barents Sea, September 2022. and it mysteriously sunk and went missing, just whoop, vanished.
Flares.
And no one knows how, and no one knows why, and it just bloop, just vanished off radar, and who knows. And apparently it remained hidden under an ice cap for 2 months before they found it. And it was a very, very secretive project in terms of getting this thing back. And apparently, according to Western media, it had a doomsday weapon aboard. And that's why there was such like a hush around it being retrieved. But we've spoken about this before, like nukes draw these things like moths to a flame. And if you've got a heavily fortified nuke on board a submarine, and you approach something that's under the water into their territory, then maybe something could have happened. But that's the bit that terrified me. How do you feel about the fact that David Grusch has confirmed that UFOs have killed people?
It links back to what I read earlier when it said, think that these crafts were like allegedly abandoned. So every possibility they're just, walking around the moors, just, chilling out. And the fact that this guy's come forward and said that there's been skirmishes between possible extraterrestrial life and humans it's Independence Day level stuff. It's terrifying. It's just the level of secrecy that goes with it.
And then just to add on to the secrecy, Arrow have it's just been made apparent that Arrow have just hired a firm that specialise in secrecy, silencing whistleblowers. Weird that a whistleblower comes out and then all of a sudden they want to stop whistleblowers from coming out.
We've said this before. The second the government get panicky and stressy and stuff, that normally, for me, that means they're covering up something big.
Something's happening. Yeah.
Something's happening that we need to get a hold of before it becomes huge. Yeah, this is big.
I want to end this because we're sort of like coming to the end of wrapping up now, and I feel like we've done a very good job of like covering what's happened and our thoughts on it. But like I said before, many people have already come forward, Mick West included, saying where is the evidence? But they're missing the point. The evidence has been provided. It's been given. It's been put together, documented, handed over to Arrow, handed over to Congress, and nothing has happened. And I wrote this down earlier, and I think it serves to be a reminder of what's happening here, is that the proof and evidence is in the hands of those who seek not to have it shown. The US government don't want this evidence coming forward because imagine we're in the middle of an energy crisis, right? Energy firms are making more money than ever in an energy crisis. Explain that one to me, please.
I can't.
Imagine if the US government turned around and said, well, actually, we've sort of had this free, unlimited source of energy for like 40, 50 years now. And I know that literally millions of people die a year through poverty and through like sort of lack of resources, and lots of people in America now are having to either choose between like food or lights, and there's people all over the world that are like living in abject poverty and can't even afford to like warm up their houses to keep their children safe. But whoopsie, we've got this like unlimited resource of energy that we just forgot to tell you all about. Oh dear, look at this over here.
But it's ours. It has to be ours. It can't be from, it's like we found it. It's that like, it's Gollum with the ring. It's How would you react, James? Honestly, if it came out and they're like, "Oh yeah, we've got this unlimited energy source." Whoops-a-daisy. I'm not angry, but I'd be so angry if.
Yeah,
I mean, we know we're all being ripped off right now with energy. It's no other reason apart from greed that this is going on, but that goes beyond the level of greed. That's malicious.
And I feel like this is the ball rolling to get more information out. But one thing that we need to remember is that like there's a debt ceiling crisis in America at the moment where they're deciding like, should the military be given another $7 trillion a year, or should it only be given 6.9 trillion? Trillions of dollars every year go missing from the Department of Defense in America. Like, that's not a conspiracy theory. They've admitted that, like, whoopsie, we get all this money and we don't know where it all goes. Well, we know where it goes. It goes to Skunk Works, it goes to Boeing, it goes to Lockheed Martin, it goes to secret projects.
Trump's hairdresser.
Yeah, it goes, Trump's got to get his spray tan done every now and again, and that costs an absolute fortune.
That's probably what he uses this energy therm for. So he just sits in it and he just gets
like a hyperbaric chamber, like Michael Jackson. you know, Barack Obama has to hide his lizard skin and stuff. Of
course.
We've got to hide the hollow Earth from everyone and the edges of the flat Earth.
Maybe the renewable energy is just a basking lamp for all the reptiles there in government.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. That's why they want to share it, because they go underground into the hollow Earth every night, and then they just sit by the lamp.
Yeah. They spend £6 trillion on locusts to feed them all.
Yeah. And I want to end this on sort of the perspective of the money that goes missing every year. So if you were to count to 1 million and you're given $1 every second you're given $1, it would take you 12 days to be a millionaire. And you think, great, that's a bit of time, but that's achievable. $1 a second, 12 days. If you were to be a billionaire, you're given $1 a second every second for 1 billion seconds. It would take you 32 years to be a billionaire. If you were to get $1 trillion, you were given $1 every second, it would take you 32,000 years. That's the level of money that goes missing within the Department of Defense every year. So if you don't think that even 1 billion of that could go on black book projects that we aren't supposed to know about, forget about it.
Yeah.
I've enjoyed this one.
But Harry, where's the evidence? Where's the evidence of that, man?
We'll have that next week.
Yeah, where's the evidence?
We'll when we record our next episode, we'll show you the evidence. But thank you, James. It's been a good one. I've enjoyed this.
Oh, great one. I loved it. The last 2 episodes have been bangers, man. Like,
they have.
They get me.
They've been something burgers.
Haven't they just in full?
Thank you everybody for tuning in. As I said at the start, we're on all the socials, but Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, Linktree, YouTube, all of that stuff. Best way to find us is our Linktree, because it has all our links on there. And please share this with someone, because we want to get rich and famous through doing this. It's the only reason we do it. Right?
Damn right. I want to shake hands with Mick West.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. And Bob Lazar, it seems like you were right. We'll leave it there. Have a good one, guys.